Hello there, welcome to the most absurd show of the year, the best of 2020. These are all very absurd videos. What was my favourite of the year? Well, if you watch my videos, you probably know roughly what my favourite video of the year is. Favourite film of the year is already. But if not, you can come and see this and hopefully you'll go and watch the longer video if it interests you. This thing is, I think people take it really seriously, these things, and that's why I don't. I just refuse to, because there's so many films I have not seen yet from 2020. There's so few that were released in 2020, some were released in streaming, but I spent most of the year actually watching older films, which is most of my channel is older films this year. There really wasn't much out that was new, that was worth talking about. I've barely been to cinema this year. I mean, a few times probably, that's it, since the beginning of the year. I don't trust the people, I don't trust anything going to cinema, so I'm not going to cinema. I just, for a brief time in about August, I tried it, I didn't like it much, didn't trust it, and never went back. I doubt I'll be doing anything different anytime soon. I just don't trust the lockdown procedures and people's self-preservation instincts. Plus, I'm fairly paranoid about bugs and things, so it's going to be a while before I go back. But I've been happy watching old films, so that's fine. And I've seen some things have come to streaming, and there's been good stuff. I mean, I've already done some coronavirus quickies over the year of interesting films that are enjoyable. Most of them do not make my list. I've actually got a list of other films that were what we call the rest, which is the films that didn't make the top 10. And we'd never make a top 10 in mine in a year, but were enjoyable anyway. Some of them which were on other videos this year and some of them weren't. But first of all, I'll go to the great guilty pleasure. My guilty pleasure movie of the year. There's always one film that's just above everything else. It's just slightly better guilty pleasure. For me, this year was Jiu-Jitsu, which is not a good film. I'm going to say right now, it's not a good film. I didn't even make a video about it. But it does have Nicolas Cage being weird as hell. It does have a plot that's pretty much Predator rip-off, but with kung fu rather than shooting. And that's it. But a lot of people are knocked out. A lot of people are killed in interesting ways by this Predator looking thing that's just a basic rip-off. It's tacky as hell. There's lots of action scenes where you don't have much emotional investment in, but it's very enjoyable. I really had a good time with this one, even though I can defend it as a good film. Some of the special effects are awful. And if someone hates the film, I get it. I understand. Instantly I get it. It's yeah, it's not that good a film. I just had a lot of fun with it. So that's my great guilty pleasure movie of the year. Yeah, my worst film of the year was Doolittle, the Robert Downey Jr. thing. It was a mess. The thing is, it wasn't even that bad a film, ultimately. It wasn't good. But it was a failure of a film. It wasn't really something to really loathe or anything. So this year did not have that, horrible thing. I'm sure it's in the vault somewhere that we'll get next year. But there was something that came out that was worse than that. I never saw it. There was some TV stuff I'll cover quickly as well. There was Filthy Rich, the Epstein documentary, which I thought was a good documentary. It was a bit long. It could have been lost an episode and been a bit more tighter, and it wasn't as hard on some of the people that it should have been. It's just one of those things. There was a Last Dance, which was a bit too close to Michael Jordan. He was one of the producers, so it was a bit kinder to him than it was to other players. I get that. I get why some people were mad with it. But it was still a very good documentary if you don't know much about the subject. There was a Watchmen TV show, which I really enjoyed, apart from a couple of little things. I did a video on that one. I've done a video on the Epstein doc and Last Dance as well, so those three have videos on them. There's some shows I greatly enjoyed. One was Legends of Tomorrow, Season 5. That was good fun. I'm a big fan of Legends of Tomorrow. I enjoyed this season's Doctor Who a lot better than the last season. It'll get a lot better for me. I'm a Doctor Who fan, so it's nice to see it's starting to get back on track again, because Jodie Whittaker's first season had a lot of bad episodes, but this season it came back up to par again, so that's good. There was other TV shows I've watched, but nothing that really jumps out of my head, really, from this year. I think a lot of TV shows I've watched were from previous years. They don't count as this year's shows, so just catching up, really. So there is that. Okay, we now go to the rest list. The films that didn't make the list, the top of the list, but they were enjoyable. Hence, we've got this background here. I'm going to have different backgrounds for the top films, but I stuck to Fat Man, which is one of the films on my list. I'm not a fan of Mel Gibson, obviously, for some of his personal things, but he was good in this film. This was a fun film. So that's a really enjoyable film. Fat Man was a really enjoyable film about a kid who gets annoyed with Santa and sends a hitman after him. You know, a lot of people thought it was overrated. It wasn't as funny as the idea was it should be, but I liked the fact that it was done as if it was like a low budget crime movie, which really worked for me. So I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was really a lot of fun. So it, it was never going to be in my top 10, but it was always going to be hovering just below my top 10. It was one of those films I'll happily watch. It's kind of like Krampus, you know, or one of those kind of Christmas movies that are quite good. That you're only going to watch at Christmas, but they're really enjoyable. They can easily be rewatched year after year. We've got Fireball, Visitors from the Darker Worlds, Werner Herzog documentary, which I'm going to cover in a quick video, but I haven't done it yet. But I will get to it before Christmas. There's 1917, the Sam Mendes film from the beginning part of the year. We got it this year. It was released last year in America, but there's some films that can count as this year's films for us. Thank God, because I've been in trouble otherwise for getting 10 after the vibes this year. But yeah, there's quite a few films that released in America last year. We get them in 2020, so they count as this year's films for me. So I didn't have a chance to see them till this year, so they're counted as 2020. And this is one of them. Very enjoyable film. It was hovering on the list for most of the year, and then get knocked out at the end because I saw some other films that knocked it out for me. I think the problem I had with this one was the ending was a bit pat, mainly. Next one, this will really please Dion Wynn, Capone. Capone I really enjoyed, even though it's pretty messy. I mean, it's about the last days of Al Capone's life with some flashbacks. He's got dementia. Tom Hardy I thought was terrific as Capone. The supporting cast is always great. It's Josh Trank's film following his disaster, Fantastic Four. It's just really enjoyable. It's a really enjoyable film. In a weird way, of if you like cult films. If you like films that make you that push you into weird directions you don't expect, this is a really enjoyable film. If you want a traditional biography, this is not an enjoyable film at all. But I found it enjoyable because it was so weird, eccentric. And anytime you let Tom Hardy go eccentric, I'm very happy. Okay, next we have Greenland, which is a Gerard Butler film that surprised the hell out of me by being very good, which was about a guy finds out a comet's going to hit the Earth and he has to get his family to safety. Now this could have been a really cheesy film, a total cheese fest, but they actually had a good script, a director who took it seriously, and a cast that was very restrained. Very enjoyable. A big surprise how good it was, because the director's last film was one of those Angel Has Fallen movies. It was a big step up from a trash fest he'd made just before this. Then we have Palm Springs, which is a kind of Groundhog Day riff. It wasn't original enough to really make my top 10, but off top 11 is going to be a top 11. But it was still very enjoyable, and I liked the fact that they were both main characters were genuinely misanthropic, and had a lot to learn from each other, and it was pretty dark, and it was like, yeah, it's the same genre as Groundhog Day, that Tom Cruise film about reliving your life as well. So it's a little sub-genre, but we're now getting people stuck in a time loop. There was another one I just saw called Boss Level, which also was very enjoyable, which is coming out soon for most of you. It's also another good one. But it's a nice little subgenre to ignore, and this is a really good example of it. Then there's Porno, which is it's a horror movie about these kids who watch this porno in a movie theatre, and the porno's haunted, and it's a sex monster released from it. That sounds really tawdry. The film itself is really well made, really good. It deals with sexual repression, sexual needs, wants, and how kids are very confused, how teenagers are very confused as they're growing up. It's a very well done film. I really enjoyed it. I'd highly recommend it to you. There's VFW as well, Veterans of Foreign Wars, which is another one of that kind of low budget level. It's a bunch of older character actors who are stuck in this bar, who all hang out in this bar owned by Stephen Lang, and someone runs in to the bar who's being chased by these drug dealers who are all over the place. She's got their drug supply, so because she stole it to get back at a guy who killed a family member, now he wants it back and he wants to kill her. These veterans say we can't allow that, and basically go to war with these drug dealers. All in 90 minutes. Pretty much a total tribute to Assault Precinct 13. It's not as good as Assault Precinct 13, but I really enjoyed it, and it's a really fun movie. As long as you go in with the right expectations, it's a funny movie, it's a fun thriller. There's some nice bits in it, but don't expect a world from it, but it's still very enjoyable. Finally, we have two documentaries, neither of which are about nice people. On the Record is about the Russell Simmons case, about sexual harassment, and all about how the damage it caused to a lot of people. It's been disputed by certain people, but there seems to be too many women come forward saying he did this, and the pattern seems so obvious that I believe the victims in this one. It just seems like something's odd there. I mean, I don't have no any proof, I just thought that the documentary made a good case. You know. Then Happy Joy Lot, the Ren and Stimpy story. I'm not a Ren and Stimpy fan at all. This was just a good documentary, the making of a show, and how the creator, who was a bit of a genius but then he was a bit mad, slowly spun out of control and became more and more dubious as the time went on. It's kind of it's a good example of what happens when someone has a vision but is not socially aligned with people and who may have darker instincts. And it's also the idea of fans should not idolise the people who make the stuff they love. Don't idolise the person. Enjoy the product, but you don't idolise the person because they might be abusive. And this is a pretty dark documentary about some things that he's been accused of, and it's pretty brutal. So those were the rest. Those are the ones that were almost made my top 11 list, but never quite made it. Now, coming at 11 is Tenet. Sorry, Nolan fanboys, it didn't make 10. But it came out at 11. Come on, that's still good. I really enjoyed this film. It's got some backlash from some of the Nolan fans who thought it was a bit more remote and too clever for its own good. But I really enjoyed it. I like the mysteries of it. I like the idea of it as this time travel thing with an underwater story. I think it's actually an underrated Nolan film, kind of like The Prestige. So I think it will grow as it goes on. I think people just, because a lot of people didn't get a chance to see it until now because of the outbreak and the teenage frustrations in the film, I think, in some cases. Also, I just think it's a film that's complicated in a way that makes you actually have to really engage with it and really pay attention. And I think people like to say they like films to protect your audience, but they kind of want to be spoon-fed a little bit as well. And this film doesn't do that. You have to really be paying attention. I really enjoyed it. You don't like it. I really liked it. So, and it's still my top of the year. Okay, but it didn't beat Bill and Ted for me. Bill and Ted Face the Music is number 10 if you're taking this seriously at all. This was like my favourite kind of mass release film of the year. Really, the one that everyone's probably heard of and a lot of people have seen. This one was kind of my favourite of the bunch. It was sweet, good-natured. It was silly in all the right ways, but also had a serious idea about the centre of it, about what happens if you don't fulfill your promise, and some of the ghosts you carry around with you for failing and your promise, and also what do you give to people around you, and how do you help people without actually realising you're helping people. And so it's a very warm-hearted film. It's actually all about families and people not understanding their effect on their own families, for good and bad. So it's not just about bad. Normally films are about the bad side of what you do with your family. But this one also takes in, and it takes in all the good stuff you do with your family that you may not appreciate, but they appreciate. So there's a lot of really good, well-meaning stuff in this, which means that why it kind of elevates above some. There are a few plot holes, but it doesn't matter because the good-natured feel of it really adds up, and it's just good-natured people and how they interact, and I think it's a very nice film, a very good-natured film, so that's why it makes my list. Now we have Possessor, the Brandon Cronenberg film that It's just really starting to come out and starting to be shown, and you can catch it in rentals here already or on Amazon streaming. I'd highly recommend it. It's really good. It's about a woman. I read in a video one. It's about a woman who possesses other people using this technology to make them do crimes, and they're kind of the patsies. An idea of cybercrime in the future, and also identity of if you basically possess someone, what's affecting the person? What's affecting you? Do you lose your own abilities, or does it just make you more callous and less tied to humanity? It's a wonderful film, really nicely surprising, because whenever you hear the son or daughter of someone famous, a famous director, does something, you always think, uh-oh. Every so often you get a good one, like Sofia Coppola, and now with Brandon Cronenberg. But a lot of time you start to think, oh, when you hear that. So, very enjoyable film, highly recommended. A nicely ambiguous film, but also does the nice thing of it kills off characters you like, so you know it's not messing about. And that's good, and it treats characters cruelly that don't deserve it, which tells you what kind of film it is. It's like, it's not a film to mollycoddle you. It's like, this is nasty stuff at times. Now we have Colour Out of Space. You know, this is it's a Nick Cage movie, obviously. You see that image, who do you expect to star in it? It's Richard Stanley's big comeback, a Lovecraft adaptation. I saw this fairly early in the year, and it's still stuck with me. It was released early, just as the pandemic was really hitting. This was the perfect film to hit during a pandemic, because it came out in home media, I think, pretty quickly, so it wasn't really a big cinema release. And it was just perfect. It's all about infection and families falling apart, going crazy, and how they destroy one another and destroy themselves, and how they get infected, and this odd colour that actually causes an infection. It's a wonderful movie, and Cage is actually one of the more contained actors in it. He knows what part he's playing, he really does it well. It's just wonderful. Highly recommended. Just go see it. Go watch it with Mandy. Watch Birmingham Double Bill. You'll get lots of colours, and you'll have a lot of fun. Okay, number 7 is Jojo Rabbit, the Taika Waititi film. Again, we got it this year. It was released in America last year, we got it this year, so it counts as a 2020 film for me. It's one of those ones that had a weird reputation because it was viewed as actually being over-hyped when we got it, because it came out, it done well, but it was about Nazism, the comment about Nazism. It's always going to have some controversy. And then I think there was a pushback against Waititi because he'd been pretty successful recently. But I thought it was just charming, and there's also a look about how fascism works on people and how it infects them and destroys their soul, and how innocent people can be destroyed, and only see the imagery of their state and not realise there's dark undertones which they slowly start to feel as the film goes on, and start to see as the film goes on. And it's also the fact how fascism preys on the dreams of people, and how it preys on their ideals, and how it's dangerous because of how it does that. It's just a wonderful film. Again, I've done another video on that one earlier in the year. Go watch the video. It's a really terrific film. It actually feels underrated now, because it's been almost forgotten since it came out, because we had a lot of hype, then suddenly it was gone, the pandemic hit, and then no one talked about it again. But it's a really good film. At 6 we have Mank, the David Fincher film. This actually surprised me making my list. Like, I always thought that because it's David Fincher, he makes a lot of good films, but I always think a lot of the time I find him a bit cold. So I just assumed this would be one of those ones that skirted round just below the main list, because it would be, I would probably just like it but not love it. But this one I really adored. This one really was a terrific look at Mankiewicz, about the time period and what compromise does to a person, what personal compromise does, and how it affects you and destroys you and makes you less of a person. I had some criticism of this one. The guy wasn't interested enough to make a film, but I disagree. I think it was interesting. It just wasn't showy. It's just sometimes you make a film about something that is quieter, and that's really interesting. I think this one was really interesting, and I immensely enjoyed it. It's one of my favourite Fincher films, this one, instantly already. I think it's a terrific film. I'd highly recommend it. Just go see it. We're now to the top 5. which is fun. We're number 5 is The Lighthouse. I've done a video on this one recently. I only saw this one recently. It'd been out since January here. It was released in America last year, but we got it this year. Another one of those. It's wonderful. It's about psychology. It's about people trapped in a location where they can't escape from because of the weather, and they're slowly going mad. They distrust each other. They distrust themselves. And it's been various ways you can go mad in isolation, within a society it just lets people disappear. Like a society that doesn't really care about people, what happens to them. It's just a society is what we've done for me recently. It's that kind of early 20th century society this film portrays. It's a wonderful film, really well acted, and it looks beautiful. It looks absolutely gorgeous. So this is black and white film number 2 in the list. There's more. Number 4 is A Painted Bird. This is another film I saw recently and I've done a video on. It came out earlier this year. It got a lot of controversy because of some of the depictions of war. People thought it was a bit gratuitous at times. I didn't. I thought it was just like the way people are horrible to each other. It's not realism though. You got to say it is not realism. It takes what happened in the war and all the horrible things and puts it into the life of one person. Like all of this would probably not happen to one person. It's almost like a myth of the horrors of war of World War Two. It's almost like this kind of odyssey through the horrors of World War Two from the point of view of a child. It's a beautiful film. It's also very dark, very haunting, and very disturbing at times. The image I've put up there is a scene from a sequence really where the boy is getting abused by the other woman. I mean, it's like they have these great images, but below the surface there's lots of nasty stuff going on. But go and watch my review of it. I covered it in more detail in the review. But this is a terrific film, very disturbing, but also very beautiful, and it's black and white. So that's my number 4. Number 3 is First Love. It's another one that released last year in other countries. We got it this year, so it's counted this year for me. Takashi Miike's return to form. This is wonderful. This is a stunning film about these two people meeting. She's been set up for a crime. He protects her one time, and suddenly they're on the run for their life through crooked cops, crooked criminals, various crime families from different countries. It's just out of control. It's a crime movie, a chase movie, a love story, a black comedy. It's the central characters are terrific. The villains are astonishingly good. It's so entertaining. The villains are so entertaining in this film. It's just wonderful. It's just Miike at his best. When he's got a project that he really understands, and he's got the cast that are there to really help him. It's just a thing of beauty. So, First Love, definitely one to see, and it's easily number 3. So, it would have been number 1. It was number 1 for so long for this year for me. You know, it got knocked off the last few weeks, but it was number 1 for most of the year for me. I thought this would be my number 1 film for ages. Okay, my number 2 film of the year was Parasite. The Oscar winning, Palme d'Or winning. It won everything. If you had an award to give away, you'd give it to Parasite this year. It just was like winning everything. It's like, I do not want to be the director in his next film because he's going to get hammered. You know, he's going to get hammered because this one's been so praised. But it is a beautiful film about a family of con people who decide to target this rich family who are a bit gullible and quietly start taking over their lives, and it looks at what happens there and who are the parasites, because it's a political side, because the rich family are basically parasites in the poor, and the poor are parasites in them, and so who is the real parasite? Because the rich families are making money off basically the workers, and this family comes from the class of the workers who are getting nothing for their labour and who turn to crime to make a living. It's just a terrific film. You know, all the characters are really flawed, all of them are really selfish. It's really funny, it's a very funny film, visually beautiful without being show-offy. It's just great. It was released last year in a lot of countries, we got it this year. It's wonderful. So for me it counts as one of this year's films. So, Parasite. Go see it. It's great. Okay, number one, this should be of no surprise to anybody. So I've just done a video and I'm raving about it. It's A Hidden Life. Um, my third World War Two movie, on the list, really, of the horrors of war and what happens to people in war. This is beautiful. Terrence Malick's film. I'm a massive Malick fan already, but this one is a stunner. It's about what happens when someone from the wrong side objects to their country behaving in fascist ways, and what happens to them personally to their families as they refuse to go along with it. And it's like, will you give your life up to actually object to fascism? 3 hours long, but there's no fat in it. There's every hour the film feels like it's almost a full film, and then even another hour, then another hour. And it moves at really a lightning pace, give you all the details and all the psychology and everything that's affecting the people involved. And it just shows the seduction and the bile of fascism and how people can compromise themselves so quickly. This is the adult version of what you got in Jojo Rabbit. The child version you saw through child's eyes, and this one you see through adult's eyes, and someone who sees it's completely wrong and completely out of control. So these two, Jojo Rabbit, this makes a really good double bill. This is a terrific film. It was released last year in America, but we got it this year. Again, it's one of those films that was released barely in America for Oscar consideration, which it got nothing. So it was hyped up as a big Oscar hopeful, then got nowhere with that. But it's a beautiful film. It really is. It's easily my film of the year. This one's a step above everything else, in my opinion. This one is just so good. So it's hard to find in physical media, which is really annoying. It's like, this is a crime. This is not physical media more than it is. I've had to buy it streaming, but I really want a physical media copy of it. So release it soon. So that's my view of the year. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, 2020 there was not much released, but then again, it was mainly, most years you mainly get crap anyway. So a lot of the really good stuff eventually found its way out here because no one was going to release it in the cinema, so you end up getting streaming. So we still got some really good stuff, and I saw a lot of. I managed to see a lot of stuff from previous years this year, which you'd see on my channel. So I did okay actually because I watched a lot of old stuff. So I hope you enjoyed my videos this year. I've still got a few more to do that will be coming out over the next few days, but after that that'll be me for till January. So I've got a few little ones to do, but mainly that's me for now. Right, well, bye.